Okay, so exponents. So exponents is a case of repeated multiplication with the same number. We can rewrite the expression using exponents. So if I have 4 times 4 times 4, that's the exact same thing as saying what, everyone? 4 to the third power. So 4 times 4 times 4 is the same thing as saying 4 to the third power. That's like saying x to the nth power. They're just using variables instead of numbers because you can plug in any number. So x is what we call, anyone know what that word is? Or 4 is called that big number. Well, it is a whole, but it doesn't always have to be. It's what we call the base. So in exponent form, that whole number, or that number that's listed, is your base. And the n, or the 3, is what we call the exponent. So as I said, this is said 4 to the third power, or 4 to the power of 3. So that means we would read this one right here as x to the nth power. Because then you can plug in any numbers you want into it, and it'll work. Okay, so when I say exponential expression, if I want you to write it as an exponential expression, 11 times 11, how do I write that? 11 to the second power. If all you are ever being asked is to write it as an exponential expression, does that mean to solve? No. So don't do it, because you're just doing extra work on yourself if you don't have to, okay? So be very careful in reading your directions, because some of your directions on your homework tonight will literally just be write it. It doesn't say to solve it, okay? So don't solve it unless it's making you solve it, because are you allowed to use calculators? No. So you're going to do a lot of extra work on problems you don't need to. Does that make sense? Okay? 2. Everyone write the exponential expression for number 2. What is it, everyone?
2 to the 7th power.
Good. Okay, this next one's a little tricky. Try and write it. Okay, somebody be very, very specific. How did you write this one? Max?
I wrote negative 5 to the 4th power.
So, like this?
Yeah.
Okay, Autumn?
You put negative 5 in parentheses.
Why?
Because if you don't, then it's just 5 to the 4th power.
Good. Do you guys remember that rule with our fractions when we were multiplying? And I was like, if you don't have it in parentheses, you're only squaring the number directly in front of it. You're not squaring that negative in front of it. So if it's negative, and do you see how these are already in parentheses? So keep them in parentheses. Okay? Does that make sense, everyone? So then based on that, everyone write the answer for number 4. What's that, everyone?
1/4 power.
Okay, and what do I have to have with that 1/4? I have to have those parentheses. Questions so far? Okay, everyone do 5. Someone tell me how they wrote that one. How did you write that one? Kansas?
I wrote 7 7 to the second power times 4 to the third power.
Excellent. Could I have flip-flopped? Could I have said 4 to the third times 7 to the second?
Yes.
Absolutely. The order does not matter. Technically, 4 to the third times 7 to the second is technically the way most people write it, at least when it comes to like answer keys and things like that. Why?
Because the bigger number.
Because it's in numerical order. 4 is smaller than 7, right? But I can accept either way. Is that understood? Okay, everyone do number 6 and number 7. Hey, someone tell me how you wrote number 7. Jared?
Negative 2 in parentheses to the third power times 8 to the third power.
8 to the what power?
Third. Or and then 8 to the fourth power.
Very good. Could I have flip-flopped them?
Yes.
Absolutely. Does the negative 2 have to be in parentheses?
Yes.
Yes. Someone tell me how they wrote number 7. Alex.
I did 2/3 in parentheses to the second power times 9 to the second power.
Very nicely done. Questions? Now, I start adding in variables at number 8, right? Do you think variables mean anything different? No, you still do them exactly the same. So everyone do number 8. What do we get, everyone?
8 to the 9th power.
Good. Number 9. This one's tricky. What do you think about this one? What do we think about this one, Cooper?
Parentheses, x, y, to the 5th power.
Very nicely done. Why on this one do I have to add parentheses when the parentheses were not there? Kansas?
Because the XY secretly has like a little multiplication sign.
Excellent. There's that tiny multiplication sign that you do not see because it's one of those invisible math rules. That is between the x and the y, which means you have to multiply x and y together first before you can square it. And in order to do that, you have to have parentheses around the x and y. Otherwise, you would square the y first and then multiply by the x. So the order of operations would be affected. Does that make sense? See, very slight nodding of heads. Any questions on that, guys? Okay, everyone do numbers 10 and 11. Actually, you can do the rest of them. Do 10 through 14 for me. When you're done, check them with the person sitting next to you. Alright, guys, let's answer them. Jacob, what'd you tell me for number 10?
I said r to the second power times 5 to the fifth power and s to the fifth power
Good.
times e to the fifth power.
Excellent. Nicely done. Okay, good. Betsy, what'd you get for number 11?
I got k to the sixth power times 9 to the third power.
Excellent. Now, typically, what would we put first?
9 to the third power.
Typically, the 9 to the third would come before the k to the sixth, but is it okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Question, Alex?
One of the questions out.
Oh, I'm just calling on random people, bud.
Okay.
James, tell me number 12.
Negative 7 to the second power parentheses times n to the second power times m to the third power.
Times m to the what?
Third power.
And then times what?
N to the second power.
Very nicely done. Blaine, answer for number 13.
P minus 2 in parentheses to the third power.
Nicely done. And 14. Brock.
A plus b in parentheses to the second power times 6 to the third.
And then I'm just going to flip-flop those, but it means the exact same thing. Now, do I have to have this dot right here between the 6 to the third and the a plus b to the second if it's in parentheses? No. Because remember, that's an invisible math rule. You do not have to have the dot as long as there's a parentheses there. Questions on writing an exponential expression. So now we got to solve, right, guys? So let's go back up to number 1. Some of these will obviously be easier than others, right, guys? Okay. So, how do I solve number 1?
11 times 11.
And 11 times 11 is? Now, the only work I would expect you to show on that one is to write down this 11 times 11 for me. Is that understood?
Yeah.
Because I expect you to know what 11 times 11 is, okay? Okay. Same thing for these. I'd expect you to write the 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, all of that out. Now, be really, really careful because this is one students miss all the time because it's easy math, but people mess it up. So everyone tell me the value, but don't say it out loud yet. So we're going to answer number 2. Check with your partner sitting next to you.
The internet appears to be fixed. You're welcome. I didn't do it, but sorry for the inconvenience.
Okay, so 2 to the 7th, what did we get?
128.
You should have told me 128. If you did not tell me 128, you got to be really, really careful because I'll have people who go, well, 2 times 2 times 2, and they'll tell me is 6 because they're not paying close enough attention. So be very, very careful. Okay, the more work you show, honestly, is going to benefit you. The less work you show, I guarantee you, you will make mistakes at some point in time. Okay, everyone do number 3. Tell your neighbor when you guys are both done. All right, what are we thinking?
645.
What, everyone?
645.
Now, what question do you think I'm going to ask you?
Is it positive or positive?
Is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Why?
Because it's negative 25.
Good, because there are 4 negative numbers, and that's how many, that's an even number, right? And every time you multiply anything with evens, your answer is always positive. Or negative times a negative is a positive, negative times a negative is a positive. So they're both going to be positive. Okay, do number 4. Tell your neighbor when both of you are done. Okay, this one's a little tricky just because it's a fraction. So you got to make sure that you're still, since it's a fraction, you're still writing your answer as a fraction. So what should my answer be?
1/32.
1 over
64.
Because 4 times 4 is what? 16, not 8. And trust me, that happens all the time. Exponents are one of the things that get constantly missed because we're so quick with math and we're really good at math that we make those easy mistakes. It's very simple to make. Okay? Now, what's different about number 5?
We were multiplying after multiplying.
Well, we're still multiplying whole numbers, yes. They're 2 different numbers, aren't they? Now, when I write it out, it's 7 times 7 times 4 times 4 times 4. Does it really matter the order in which I multiply? Should I get the same answer no matter what?
Yes.
Absolutely. So you can really multiply however you want to. So this number is going to get a little bit bigger. So everyone do that answer for me. Check it with the person next to you when you are done. Oh goodness, are we already in the middle? Okay, so